Welcome to podcast 22 in the series of Who Let the Master Out. Earlier in this series, in podcast 10, we went through the Superpower Bootcamp. And in that bootcamp, we focused on the 5 superpowers that are connected to the mighty power of choice. And those were the power to laugh, the power of thank you, the power of now, the power of no, and the power to question. Now, these superpowers, they're very helpful for our journey coming back from fear and in allowing us to let out our inner master. But of course, that list is not all inclusive. You know, we have so many abilities and powers that we could never really list them all completely. But there are 3 more that I would like to talk about that have impacted my life. The first one is the power of speech and self-talk. When we discussed the throat chakra earlier in this series, I mentioned that it was in this chakra that we have the ability to give voice to the unconditional love that's inside us. And that's made possible when we balance the throat chakra and we use it for its highest purpose. And if you want to know more about how to balance that chakra, check out podcast number 16 in this series of Who Let the Master Out. Now, obviously, when this chakra is out of balance, our power of speech and self-talk can take on a darker hue. But even then, it's still being used for our highest experience. When we speak negatively to others or ourselves, whether it's either verbally or internally in our head, we add to the conditional love and fear events in our lives. And that's what we come here for, is to experience our opposites, which are fear and all these uncomfortable emotions. So no moment is ever wasted. You know, an interesting experiment is to go to like a coffee shop or a restaurant or really any public place where you can pretend to sit and read a book. But instead of reading, listen to all of the conversations that are taking place around you. It's really in sitting as a third party, witnessing someone else's life for whom you have no attachment, you really begin to notice things. You hear about their fears. You hear about their uncomfortable emotions. You hear about the attachments they have to these external things. And then you start to hear the definition that they're placing on themselves and the definition they're placing on others because of these attachments that they have to those external things. Now, when you do this, it can feel like you've boarded the drama train because you really start to hear it all around you. But when you're not directly involved in those lives that you're observing and listening about, your emotions don't get as involved. And that allows you to have a quietness inside your head where you can more clearly see these characters that are all around you who are playing their parts in this giant improv story. It also allows us to become more aware of our own choices in speech and self-talk. The second additional superpower is what I call the power of touch or the hug. You know, the arms and hands are also related to the throat chakra. And when we have our arms outstretched to our sides and we stand in the form of a T, the arms are resting at the level of the throat chakra. Again, when the throat chakra is balanced, we can also use our arms and hands to express unconditional love. In physical activity, through a gentle touch or a sincere hug, it's really hard to deny the impact that those have on the attitude of our hearts. You get to be having such a horrible day and choosing, all these fearful thoughts, and someone gives you a hug, like a sincere hug from a friend. and everything just melts away. And though no one can make our choices for us, when we share unconditional love with each other, it can help, or at least make it easier, for us to choose unconditional love instead of fear or conditional love. Now, when the throat chakra is out of balance, then our actions can be focused on finding external validation through touch. And when we see other people and see someone else's life and we look at it, they can be a mirror back to us on how we are also searching outwardly for the love that we can only find from within. Because outside of us, usually all we're going to find is conditional love in this world, in this amusement park full of fear and conditional love. But unconditional love we can only find from within. Now, the last superpower I wanted to mention in this podcast is the power of directness. And it is an offspring of our power of no. And it basically is about being assertive. There's a saying, let your yes be yes and your no be no. But we often find ourselves fearing being judged or rejected by others for not doing what we think they want us to do. We might say maybe or yes, but then back out later. And if we do say no, we might feel we owe an explanation for why we aren't accepting their invitation or following their proposal or suggestion. But the power of directness comes into play here, and we're able to let go of the responsibility for others' reactions and responses to our decisions. Now, we don't have to be mean or rude in responding, but we can just offer a simple no. And it can sound something like, well, thank you. I appreciate the offer, but at this time, I won't be able to make it. Or at this time, I won't be able to do that. We don't have to be sorry or feel badly about it. We each have our own lives to live, and we have a finite amount of time that we have here on this planet. And it's our decision to choose what we want to do to fill our days. So we can use this power to choose and be kind and not have to think we have to make excuses for our choices for our lives. Now, so far in this series, we've discovered the difference between who we really are versus this character we're playing here in this improv skit we call life on Earth. And we've equipped ourselves with tools and activated our superpowers to prepare us for this next adventure we're heading off to. We've also had a bird's eye view of the map of our experiences here on the physical plane. We talked about two paths that we're traveling, moving, from the root chakra, experiencing fear, through the crown chakra to experience unconditional love, while we simultaneously are converging from both ends of the chakra system to meet in the heart chakra and experience unconditional love here on Earth. But next, we will be moving into becoming aware of who we really are. That powerful, supernatural, eternal spirit being made from unconditional love that we really are. We're going to examine who we are before we're born and who we are after we die. And we'll learn how to bring that awareness into the physical plane, into this present moment. And of course, in doing this, we just might activate all sorts of amazing abilities that have been laying dormant inside of us while we've been distracted by our fear experiences. So next episode, we'll start off by looking at the before, the after, and the in-between. But until then, break the cycle. Be free. Be big. Because we are all giants in a world full of giants who have all been taught that we're weak and that we're small. But it's time to rise. It's time to let your master out.